Hey, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at what just might be the best subscription you as a gamer can pay for. Maybe. For those of you who somehow didn't read the title of this video or see the thumbnail, I don't know how you managed that, but I'm talking about, of course, Gamepass. For the uninitiated, Gamepass is a subscription-based gaming service. Basically, it's Netflix for games. You pay a monthly fee and get access to a rotating library of games, varying in quality and caliber. Now, the reason that I say it's probably one of the best subscriptions you can pay for as a gamer is because while I personally really value owning games that I play, and this kind of makes the concept of that less and less valuable to these large companies, I also see the value in not needing to buy a game outright in order to play it. Now, I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I would be willing to posit that there are a lot of gamers who buy games fully intending to play all the way through them, but then after maybe 5 to 10 hours, move on to another game. To be clear, I don't think that is by any means what all gamers do, but I think the vast majority of more casual gamers struggle with this issue, myself included. And that could be for any number of reasons. Maybe they just lose interest really quick, or maybe they don't have the time to allot to a super long and engaging play session. Whatever the reason, this leaves these gamers with a real issue when it comes to purchasing games. Sure, they can buy the game for full price and try to return it within the window, but even the most lenient return system, Steam's, only allows for 2 hours of gameplay or 14 days before removing the ability to get a refund. So that means you need to make the judgment on whether this, generally at the very lowest end of the spectrum, 5-hour piece of art resonates with you enough to justify the price. And given that most games are well over the 5-hour mark in terms of playtime, 2 hours, while generous, is nowhere near enough time to make a judgment based on anything deeper than whether or not it can actually run on your machine and if you like the art style or not. Plus, even if you do like the game and decide to keep it, are you really going to go back and play that game more than maybe once? Sure, you might, but I would bet most people, if they finish a game at all, are certainly not going to go back and replay it. Most people move on to the next new exciting thing, and that's totally cool. Playing all the way through a game once is already a tough enough ask for a lot of people. But with that in mind, what's a gamer to do if they want to play the new titles, but know they won't get more than maybe 50% of the way through? Well, that is where Gamepass comes in. As I said earlier, with Gamepass you get access to a revolving library of games from all kinds of developers. One of the major hurdles for a subscription service like this to overcome is the library, and Gamepass's library covers a wide range of different kinds of games, everything from the latest COD or Bethesda title, all the way through to that hot indie you've been hearing everybody talk about. Now, sure, the library is far from the sheer size of Steam, Epic Games, or GOG, but what you lose in choice, you gain in convenience. I don't want to sound like a Game Pass shill here. This video isn't sponsored by them, and there are a lot of issues that I have with Game Pass. For one, the fact that if this kind of service gets popular enough, we could very possibly see the concept of a one-time purchase go by the wayside, much like the music industry. Sure, you can buy a song, but why would you if you can just stream it and millions of others for like $20 a month? And there are plenty of other issues, but my point with this is that it's a great way to try new games. And the inclusion of a lot of indie titles means you aren't stuck with the major, huge budget AAA games. That's really how I use Game Pass, and for just about $12 a month on PC, for now, it's a really good way to try out all of those new games and curb that FOMO feeling you get while not sinking $60 to $70 into a game that you're not going to get further than like 25 to 50% of the way through. So, with all that in mind, here are some cozy games I think you should check out if you're signing up for Game Pass. And to be clear, given the relatively small size of the Game Pass library, any indie games on here are going to be far from cult classics. These are all well-known and widely publicized games. So yes, I'm aware I'm not like unearthing hidden gems or something. Also, it's worth mentioning, due to the rotating nature of the Game Pass library, I can't guarantee these games will be available on the service when you watch this video. But with that in mind, let's get into the games. Botany Manor is a quaint little game about uncovering new horticultural techniques for growing exotic plants. What all this means is that it's a puzzle game about figuring out how to grow different plants and what conditions they thrive in. It takes place in the 1890s in an old medieval manor which you inherited from your parents years ago. It's all very old money vibes, and I really enjoy the slightly more colorful but still very much dark academia feel of the mansion. You walk around discovering new rooms with different little clues about how to grow the next seed. The basic gameplay loop involves finding a new seed, planting that seed in some soil, giving it some water so it sprouts, and then figuring out how to take it to a full bloom. And this is really where the puzzle aspect comes in. The mansion is sectioned off into different rooms and gardens which all coordinate with a different seed. Once you've sprouted the seed for that area that you're in, you can move on to figuring out how to make it bloom. To do that, you need to walk around and find clues and enter them into your notebook to help you keep track of the clues that you found. Now, I personally didn't find the clue-keeping mechanic to be the most engaging. Maybe I missed something in the tutorial, but I couldn't actually refer back to the clue from my notebook, so I had to actually go back and find it again, and then see what it said. So I just didn't really understand the point of putting the clue in the notebook if you can't read it out of the notebook too. But other than that, I think the game is a really great showing. The puzzles all have a really pretty good progression and don't get too difficult. I never felt like there was a BS puzzle or anything like that. That being said, it is possible for puzzle game enthusiasts this might be a bit too easy. It does strike me as a bit more of an intro to puzzle games than something that would challenge hardcore fans of the genre. But given that I am not, in fact, a hardcore puzzle fan, that's great for me. Overall, I really recommend this game. The music is great, the art style, while maybe a bit too polished and clean for some, is really great to look at, and the polished nature does help make it a little bit easier to discern what is a clue and what isn't. And the overall vibe is just really chill, and it's a nice place to hang out in. It's really nice not to feel like you have a ticking clock or anything like that to beat. You just take your time discovering these plants' secrets. It's really just a chill, fun time, which tickles your brain just the right amount in my opinion. But our next title takes the idea of a puzzle game and turns it on its head. Maquette is a trippy puzzle game where you explore and uncover the relationship between two unknown people, one of which is presumably you. This game's whole thing is about messing with scale and thinking outside the box. I don't want to give too many of the solutions away, so I'll keep my gameplay to just the first one or two puzzles, but basically you're inside this courtyard which has 4 different scenes on the 4 sides, and in the middle is a miniature version of that courtyard. A maquette, if you will. And this is where it gets trippy. If you place an object in the maquette in the center, it gets placed in that spot in the life-size courtyard and vice versa. And this is the important part. It keeps its scale relative to where it's placed. So if you place an object that's, say, medium size in the maquette in the center of the courtyard, it'll appear in the real world, but at a much larger size. If you place something outside the center area, it'll show up in the maquette smaller than when you placed it. It's a really interesting idea and a really unique puzzle game mechanic. The idea of basically placing your game in what could be described as an infinity mirror illusion, but in 3D, is, to my brain, genius. But that's the main mechanic. You're given a new area which has a traversal puzzle that you need to solve, and once you solve it, you hear a bit more about the next part of the relationship. Oh, and that goes in chronological order, so you follow these people through their relationship from start to finish. And the maquettes and puzzles relate to different stages in their relationship. And it all takes place here in SF, which is always cool for me to see as someone who's lived in the SF Bay Area my whole life. It's cool to hear a story taking place here that isn't just about starting a big tech company or making millions of dollars. But yeah, I really liked playing this game. Now, the trippy nature of the mechanics did admittedly lead to me feeling like some of the puzzle solutions were a bit BS, but I think that's fully on me. And I only had that feeling in the first chapter of the game, so I think that was just me learning the mechanics. Other than that, it's a really solid puzzle game with some really cool and innovative mechanics that I've never seen done before. So if you're a puzzle game kind of person, but you like your puzzles to have a bit of romance and intrigue, I highly recommend Maquette. But now, taking a step away from puzzle games for a bit, we have our next title. What can I say about Jusant that hasn't already been said? It's an amazing game with really interesting climbing mechanics. The game takes you through the post-apocalyptic story of this civilization that lives on a tower that you're climbing to the top of. You discover this story through the remnants left behind and environmental storytelling. The atmosphere of this game is amazing. It does a really great job of crafting a world that's both completely foreign, but also completely believable. It's very Studio Ghibli in its vibes and world building. Right from the beginning of the game, you can tell that the entire thing takes place in a dried-up seabed with all kinds of marine paraphernalia everywhere. It's very Nausicaa in that way. Honestly, the vibes in this game are just absolutely peak, and if the idea of Ghibli-inspired post-apocalypse sounds like something you would be into, this won't disappoint. But what really makes this game unique isn't in its world or its vibe. It's the mechanics of the climbing. You climb the rock while attached to a rope, as you would be doing if you were rock climbing in real life, but the whole time you need to manage your rope and make sure that you keep at least one hand attached to the handhold at all times. You're given 3 pinions, which allow you to kind of make little checkpoints for yourself as you climb, so if you fall, you can start back from there and not from the very beginning of the climb. What makes the climbing unique, though, is the fact that you control each hand separately. So on PC, you control the left hand with left click, and right hand with right click, and you control the direction with WASD. It's kind of like a much less frustrating getting over it. This mechanic is really cool, and it's really fun to get the hang of, though it can feel a bit janky at times, and it's not the most smooth way to implement climbing in a game. However, the entire point is this climbing mechanic, so it wouldn't really make sense if the entire game was just one big, long Tomb Raider climbing sequence. I think there's something really meditative about Jusant and its climbing mechanics. They're simple enough to let you get into a groove with, but difficult enough to still keep your brain engaged. Plus, usually at the end of a climbing section, you're rewarded with some kind of lore, so that gives you a bit of motivation to get to the end of the next section. It's all just really masterfully crafted. Everything from the models themselves to the core mechanics feel entirely connected. There's a reason that this game got a lot of press when it released, and it's because it's just simply an amazing game with an amazing world and story. If you're really into the exploration aspects of games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, or you just really love quality games from smaller teams who are passionate about their craft, Jusant is going to be right up your alley. But speaking of alleys, Little Kitty Big City is one of those games you see and just know immediately if it's for you. They absolutely deliver on their promise of being a curious little kitty with a big personality on an adventure to find your way back home, explore the city, make new friends with stray animals, wear delightful hats, and leave more than a little chaos in your wake. You start the game by falling out of a window in your house and are naturally tasked with finding your way back. That's the main goal and the driving motivation behind everything you do. But don't be mistaken, there's no shortage of side quests to derail you from your main objective. Whether that's collecting a ton of feathers or shinies, or helping out other animals around town by just generally being a nuisance to the humans walking around the street. There's no shortage of stuff to do here. Now, if you're the kind of gamer who doesn't like endless side quests and collectibles, this isn't going to be for you. It feels a lot like the classic collectathons of the early 2000s, but with the collectibles a bit better integrated than in those games. But those collectibles are far from simple coins or bananas or what have you. No, in this game, they're all delightfully cat-related. For example, the hats that you can find all over the place. You find these little gotcha balls scattered throughout the streets, and once collected, you have a new, adorable hat to give your kitty some personality. Overall, this isn't the most complex or, deceptively deep game you can imagine. If you see the store page and think, oh boy, another cat game about being cute, pass, then yeah, I would pass. But if you, like myself, see it and say, oh boy, another cat game, but I get to dress up my cat and talk to other cute animals and mess with people, count me in, then you will not be disappointed. It is exactly what you see on the tin, and for that, I absolutely adore this game. I don't know what it is, but I just can't get enough of walking around Japan messing with people and just being a cute little cat. It's just everything I've ever wanted. It's amazing, and I highly recommend it. But that's all for today's video. I hope you found some games to try if you're subscribed to Game Pass, and even if you're not, these games are really great in their own right. So even without the subscription, they're totally worth your time no matter where you play them. Other than that, though, I'll just say thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy gaming.